Good evening, all. I'm Aditi Lamba with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News, Vision of Asia. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Welcome to the show. Let's begin the episode taking a look at the coronavirus pandemic and its impact. The world is at 194 million cases of COVID-19 with more than 4 million deaths. Cases in the United States have doubled over the past week, mainly among unvaccinated people. In the nation right now, the total caseload of COVID-19 infections stands at more than 34 million, while the death toll is at least 611,000. U.S. health authorities have said that Americans fully vaccinated against COVID-19 should now go back to wearing masks in indoor public places in regions where the virus is spreading rapidly. This comes as the CDC issued a revised mask guidance and also recommended all students, teachers, and staff at schools wear masks regardless of whether they are vaccinated. Meanwhile, the Delta variant now accounts for more than 80% of new COVID-19 cases. In the Olympics, U.S. gymnast Simone Biles has withdrawn from the competition to focus on her health, raising awareness of mental health and well-being of athletes during the highly difficult competitive games. With this, let's now take a look at the headlines coming in tonight with an exclusive featuring Eric Adams, the Democratic nominee for New York City Mayor. Here are the headlines. ITV Gold exclusive featuring Democratic nominee for New York City Mayor, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. CDC says kids should wear masks in schools, Dr. Naveen Mehrotra, New Jersey. Gandhian Society hosts Summer Picnic 2021 promoting Mahatma Gandhi, New Jersey. Time for a short break on Vision of Asia South Asian News segment. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Aditi Lamba and this is Vision of Asia Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. On COVID-19 updates and more, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recommended that people should begin wearing masks indoor in areas with high COVID-19 transmission rates. The agency went ahead and also has said and recommended that students, teachers, and staff in schools this fall should all wear masks regardless of their vaccination status, especially where children are not even eligible for vaccines. This comes as the Delta variant of the coronavirus continues to spread all across the nation and is expected to cause another surge in the country in the coming months. President Joe Biden has agreed with the new revised CDC guidelines, saying that this guidance is necessary to defeat the virus and that more vaccinations and mask wearing in areas most impacted by the Delta variant will enable us to avoid school closures, lockdowns, and disruptions we faced in 2020. Experts are pleading parents to get their eligible kids vaccinated. However, the rate of vaccination among children still has stayed low. So how should we handle children back in school and what major precautions do we need to take now? We spoke with pediatric specialist Dr. Naveen Mehrotra earlier today. Here is Dr. Mehrotra. We are hearing that COVID-19 cases are increasing amongst children. I'd like to know what you have seen so far about it in your clinics or in just your profession with the children, and also how much has these cases risen?
So definitely every day the number of cases are rising, and I think we've heard enough on the news wherever we're turning about the Delta variant, and it is scary to see these numbers rising day in, day out.
Yes, definitely. Let's now talk about more on this, Doctor. The American Academy of Pediatrics last week issued a recommendation saying all kids from the age of 12 to 17 or all the kids going to schools should wear a mask regardless of their vaccination status. CDC yesterday came up with the recommendation stating that school staff, teachers, and students should wear masks this coming fall. What is your comment on this? How are you looking at it?
I'm actually very, very happy that initially when the CDC had said that, it's okay for people not to mask if they've been vaccinated, reverse that. And that's what the American Academy of Pediatrics has been saying ever since that mandate came out, that it's okay to not mask, that we should keep the kids masked as much as we possibly can, because a lot of those kids are not vaccinated. So to have this mandate come out where the kids are being asked to mask, even if they're vaccinated inside of school, is, I think, one of the best things that we can do for the safety of everyone around them.
What's your comment on schools having a hybrid model? Do you think it's safe to have lots of students in one classroom? And do you recommend the 6 feet social distancing still? Two-part question.
So the social distancing piece has been up and down in terms of what is a safe distance. Is it 6 feet? Is it 3 feet? So what I'm saying to all of my parents that come into the practice is to make sure that your kids stay masked and that keep their distance wherever they possibly can. And if they can maintain a 6-foot distance, that's ideal. And also to make sure that they maintain good sanitation precautions to make sure that if there's anybody that they know that's sick, or if that they're being in contact with anybody like that, to make sure keep your distance as much as you possibly can.
Right. It's so important to take these precautions because there are thousands and thousands of students going back to school. Let's talk about vaccinating a little bit, Doctor. What do you have to say about the vaccination rates amongst children? Are you happy with it? And if not, where should they be right now?
So this is, I think we've once again heard this a lot, that the vaccination rates are not where they need to be. Especially in kids, the vaccination rates are very, very low. And many of the parents have this fear that because of the EUA, the emergency use authorization, that the vaccine may not have been studied enough, or we don't know what the long-term side effects of the vaccine may be. What we do know immediately in hand is that the vaccines protect against severe illness, they protect against death, severe hospitalizations, and they also reduce transmission to other people that may not be vaccinated. So it is extremely critical as parents to make sure that our kids get vaccinated if they're eligible. So right now the vaccines are only eligible for kids 12 and above. So make sure you go ahead and get those kids vaccinated.
Right. Doctor, what do you have to say about children that have comorbidities such as diabetes or lung diseases or any other immunocompromising diseases? How important is it for them to get COVID-19? And could there be a side effect for these people to get the vaccine? I think that's another fear of parents.
Right. A very common question for many, many parents, especially the asthmatics, the diabetics.
Right.
All of these parents are worried. My kid has an allergic reaction, has some food allergy. Can he go ahead and get the vaccine? Yes, they can go ahead and get the vaccine. There's really no evidence right now which contraindicates the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, with children who have some sort of comorbidities. So it is actually extremely critical and important for these kids to get the vaccine, because without the vaccine, the severity of the illness, if your child is diabetic or if your child is asthmatic, may be much, much more severe. So go ahead and get your child protected as quickly as possible that you can.
Are you also seeing rising number of deaths amongst children, or is that still okay?
Yes, we've seen a handful, but not to the extent of the corona pandemic in adults. We do know that the kids who are getting COVID the majority of them tend to fight it off with minor illness. There are kids that do get hospitalized, and the number of hospitalizations are increasing. And there are these kids who get COVID that can prolong the illness. Even though they do get better, they can have symptoms for months on end, which we're still trying to figure out what exactly those symptoms are. You might have heard the terminology long haulers.
Yeah. And
these are kids who have had COVID and may have become well within a few days, within a week or two, but now months on after COVID has been out of their system, it may not necessarily be out of their system, and these symptoms are lingering on.
In New Jersey, the Gandhian Society proudly represents thousands of Indians residing in the state and making up a huge portion of the population. Established on the teachings of India's father of nation Mahatma Gandhi, this non-profit society makes these teachings available and accessible to all, especially the youth of the South Asian community being raised in the US. The vision of the Gandhian Society is to raise awareness of non-violence approach and bring the change by being the change. Promoting Mahatma Gandhi's values of non-violence, truth, self-discipline, fearlessness, and more, the society's goal is to help bring in more peace and harmony, especially during this tough time with the pandemic, and eradicate any form of discrimination. Recently, the Gandhian Society's key members came together for a summer picnic event reflecting on all the efforts of the society on COVID-19 relief to India and the United States. Here is the story.
Gandhian Society is having our annual picnic along with supporting organizations like the Gopio and Zakir Hussain Foundation also. The Gandhian Society was started by our founder, Mr. Bhadra Butala, to propagate the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi amongst the diaspora. He's been doing some really good projects to propagate the ideology. In January we had an event to observe the martyrdom of Mahatma Gandhi in the Indian Consulate in partnership with the Indian Consulate. We had invited various dignitaries, lawmakers from US as well as family members of the late Mahatma Gandhi to attend the prayer meet. And during last year's pandemic, the Gandhian Society worked with various organizations in India, NGOs, to set up stalls on some highways to distribute dry fruits to the migrants who were walking back during the early days of the pandemic. And during the second wave of pandemic this year, in March and April, the Gandhian Society sent over 200 oxygen concentrators to India, especially to the tribal and rural areas where there was no healthcare facilities to the poor people. And we've also did a prayer meet in Central Jersey in April with 18 different religious leaders to pray for the end of pandemic. And on August 15th this year, we are having a couple of events to celebrate Indian independence. We are calling this event Swaraj with Gandhi and Vinoba Bhave.
Today we got really a good news. We started funding for ambulance. Ambulance is a most essential thing in India for tribal people. They really need a ambulance for their medical thing. So we started to collect the funds, and we are happy. We are getting today commitment about 4 or 5 ambulance from various people.
Our whole family, my parents, my grandparents, everybody were all, colored by the freedom movement, by the Gandhiji and Sardar Patel and Nehru and all that. And I was born in 15th August 1931. Wow. 31, so I'm 90 almost going to be, but I'm vegan. I'm very simple, just like Gandhiji and everybody else. I don't eat any kind of fancy food or nothing. Very simple food and high thinking. And I was there with my father and everybody in the first convention was done in Bardoli, near the Haripura, near the Bardoli. And that's the first convention was done by the Congress, and I was there, and I saw all those selfless, all the leaders of the country. There is no selflessness anymore. And also Subhash Chandra Bose was the first elected president of the Congress Party in 1939. And I was there, and we have our Patel people supported him wholeheartedly, and go for it and go for the strike and on hunger strike and join the movement and give the full support to Sardar Patel.
Another thing, my family is Gandhian. My uncle was in jail with Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Patel in Yerwada jail. Yeah. Only thing I give you that example. When at that time in 1929, in Bardoli Satyagraha, right. So my uncle go in the front of the crowd, not the crowd, but go singing the patriot song, right? At that time there is a curfew. More than 5 people is gathering, they capture. So they put him in the jail. First they take him to the Ahmedabad. And there is in front of the court, judge, in the morning they ask English judge. Yeah, English judge, right? So what is your name? So he said, Nagarwai Lalubhai Patel. Where you live? This is the town, my Bardoli, Malikpur. And then they asked lawyer, what kind of business you do? Anybody has any idea what he said at that time, young man like 22 years old in front of the white judge? No, he said, I'm digging the grave of English people.
I mean, this is a very important event. It's a very important aspect of, especially folks my age who are not necessarily as knowledgeable about Gandhi and his views. So having the opportunity to work on a project like this and meet you folks, I think it enhances our understanding and gives us the ability to actually pass this on to our kids. So first of all, thank you for having us here. I welcome the opportunity to partner with you on this and future opportunities. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think what Butalaji has started as an initiative, we are joining at a much later edge of that. So we really commend Butalaji for standing strong for so many years on Gandhian values and giving us Gopiya, which is a recent chapter in Manhattan, but overall Gopiya, a chance to stand beside Butalaji on this wonderful initiative and raise money for the right cause. Because as Maheshji has put up in the circular, each ambulance is traveling between 140 kilometers to 280 kilometers from tribal area to the nearest hospital. So just think that for a second. What 280 kilometers, if you're thinking in mile terms, you're talking about close to 200 miles or 180 miles journey to be done in an ambulance where there's no support in the tribal area. So this cause can be done together with groups of 3-4 people coming together. There's no push here for anyone here, but what we are hoping that you guys will become messengers for your respective communities, respective friend circles, and raise awareness for this very important cause of 50 ambulances as a target. What I think nobody mentioned here, but Maheshji's done a wonderful work in getting the price down to $7,500. The original cost of the ambulance is close to $9,000.
It's now time for the short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. And welcome back. I'm Aditi Lama and this is Vision of Asia South Asian News segment. We have now an exclusive featuring New York City's Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. A retired police captain and former state senator of Brooklyn's 20th Senate District, Mr. Eric Adams is also the Democratic nominee in 2021 New York City's mayoral election and is also projected to win the seat this coming November. The borough president has stated that he grew up poor in Brooklyn and Queens. He wore a bulletproof vest to keep his neighbors safe, and that he's honored to be the Democratic nominee to be the mayor of the city he has always called home. In our interview with Mr. Adams, he said that he is advocating to stem gun violence in both the US and New York City, and also met with President Biden in regards to the growing and concerning issue. He has said that this issue will be his top priority as a mayor to help make New York safer for its residents and will focus on communities that have normalized lawlessness. Borough President Eric Adams also stated that advocating both for police and Black Lives Matter could be balanced with the right policies and the right mission. Here's a segment of our conversation with the projected winner of New York City mayoral election, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Let's now talk about something that you had just mentioned a little bit before, the issue of gun violence and crime. I know you had a meeting with President Biden on this, and I know you have met many Democratic officials on this. You have said that this is your key priority of focus. A, I'd like to know why is this your key priority of focus? And B, a lot of this is to help Black and brown communities. That's what you're doing that work for. What have you seen in these communities that really need help for?
Well, we must have a two-pronged approach. of what I call intervention and prevention. Prevention, those are the long-term things we must do. When you look at the feeders of crime, 80% of the men and women at Rikers Island don't have a high school diploma or an equivalency diploma. And some reports out of Texas show that 30% of the prisoners were dyslexic. Here in New York, 55% of the prisoners have learning disabilities. 48% have mental health illnesses. And so as we deal with crime, we must stop the feeders. Everything from the foster care children aging out prematurely that turn to a life of crime because they don't have support that they deserve. Those are the long-term prevention plans, but they must be intervention. We have to deal with the gun violence right now. And so I would reinstitute a plainclothes unit that's going to zero in on those who are carrying guns. I think our judges must ensure that those who are found using guns or carrying guns receive bail so they don't return to our streets with dangerous action. We must partner with our federal, state, and city agencies to put in place I call a JGGF, Joint Gun Gang Task Force, so that we can focus on information sharing and stop the flow of guns in our city. You won't believe, but a large number of guns that are used in our city, those guns are actually being used by people who did not purchase the guns in the first place. And so we need to do more to prevent the flow of guns in our city.
Yes, this brings me to a very important issue. You are a retired captain from the police force. And the police has been in a bit of an issue since last year with a lot of Black Lives Movement, calling for defunding of police. So my question to you is, what role do you think the police has in controlling gun violence in the city and also controlling crime rate? And how are you going to balance, because I know you're a supporter of Black Lives Matter cause as well, how will you balance those two?
And you can balance the two. You can have the justice you deserve and the safety you need. I spent my life leaning into accomplishing this task as a person who was abused by police misconduct, and then later becoming a police officer and fighting for police reform. And so I know how to get that balance. We're going to have the backs of our police officers so that they can fight crime, but we're also going to hold our police officers accountable. Those who are abusive, we're going to expeditiously remove them from our police department and give them the support internally so that they know that they're going to be in an environment where we lift up the nobility of policing and the profession that it brings. And so we can have both. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to succumb to lawlessness because of the concerns of not having proper justice in our police department. I know it could be done, and we're going to show people how to do it.
Right. And, the South Asian community has faced the issues of gun violence. They have also faced discrimination, and they're also currently struggling with the economic recovery. What are the resources available from your office for the South Asian American community?
Well, number one, we're going to make sure that my administration is reflective of the diversity in the city, including the South Asian community. We must see ourselves in the government that represents us. And you're right, when you look at some of the bias crime, when you look at some of the problems around businesses and other support, and then even some of the gun violence that the South Asian community is experiencing. We all want a safer city. And I'm going to create a partnership with these various communities so we can have a unified, diverse voice at the table as we lean into the success of making our communities a safe place to raise our children and families.
With this, we wrap up our show for the night. Please again send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on our Facebook handle @itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for free access to many of our popular shows. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Diti Lamba. Take care and be well.